I do. I feel, well, it's been a day.
All right, we are
Sorry.
live.
Good evening, friends and family. Hello. Welcome back to our monthly session.
Monthly live.
I can't believe it's already been a month.
I know. And it's almost the end of April.
Yeah, I
Where's
know.
the
I'm
year
not
go?
processing that yet. I'm like, May is next week.
Yeah.
I'm like, where is this? But it's okay. I'm ready for the spring weather and everything.
Yeah,
So,
me too.
guys, tonight is a really, really deep diving topic. And before we get into the tools and the tips and the strategies, we're going to talk about meltdowns. And we're going to talk about, is meltdown really a behavior, or is it how the body is responding? And before we get into this, I want to first address this to all the families listening or watching this recorded. You're not alone. Tonight, what we're going to talk about is a very sensitive subject, and it's a lot of family crisis and parents that I've talked to, especially with our lower functioning children or high crisis children, when their kids have gone into a meltdown.
Yeah.
And guys, we're going to go into what is a meltdown and what is a tantrum or a behavior versus I'm in a full meltdown.
Mhm.
You know, I liked what when we were talking earlier when you're like, well, what is that as an adult? It's a panic attack.
It's a panic attack.
And so when we start looking at things from a little further away, we can realize what is actually going on with our child.
Mhm.
Okay. But parents, caregivers, loved ones out there, the reason I want to stress that you're not alone is because most of the time when our child or someone we love, it may not even be your child, a kid in your classroom, goes into a full blown meltdown, many times parents self reflect. Am I doing something wrong? What have I done? I can't help this. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah.
How do I handle this in the public eye? Because meltdowns happen everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Anywhere.
Airports,
Yeah.
grocery stores,
Mhm.
schools,
The malls.
at home, any.
Yeah.
And it seems that meltdowns happen more in public places. Well, more stimulation, guys. So it's common that these things happen, but it's not common in giving parents, caregivers, loved ones the tools to handle it.
Yeah.
So when we talk about meltdowns, yes, we know we deal with our neurodivergent families. Meltdowns happen to all kids.
All kids and adults.
Yes.
Yeah. It just looks a little different.
Correct.
Mhm.
So tonight, as we go into this over the next 45 minutes, as we give you some strategies and we start to point out some of the things that I even brought my notes. And guys, you know, I don't bring notes. I brought notes to this one because there are some key points I want to make sure we address. And I want to make sure that we at least send 3 tips that our families can use during the meltdown.
Perfect.
So, Manny, let's talk about the clinical version of what is a meltdown.
All right. So let's talk about making sure we have a differentiation, right? So clinically in ABA, we talk about things like tantrums, right? So now the vernacular we use is emotional outbursts. So what is an emotional outburst? Well, typically an emotional outburst is a combination of 2 or 3 behaviors all happening at once.
Mm.
Now it's not quite the meltdown yet. So let's talk about it. So we can picture Johnny or Jane.
You took it out of my mind because my
Behavior,
mind's
yeah,
already
Johnny
there
or Jane.
moving.
So behavior number 1, verbal aggression. They're being mouthy. They're saying, no, I don't want to. No, I don't want to do that. Or they're saying whatever other verbal repertoire they have. Or maybe they're not even saying words. They're just, which is still verbal aggression, just
Absolutely.
without the words. But that's a singular behavior. Another one could be flopping on the floor. So now they just, it's almost like all bodily functions have gone away. They've just decided to plant themselves on the floor, and we call that physical refusal or flopping. But it's basically saying, I don't want to. It's in protest, right? It's not that their body functions actually went away. They're doing it on purpose. They're doing it for some type of function. But flopping in and of itself is a singular behavior. Now add in crying or screaming, which is not the same as verbal refusal, but it's whining or crying or whatever behavior that kid does to let you know they're upset, right? Now combine them all. So now you have the screamer, the verbal refusal, the flopping, and then if your kiddo or older kid adds in a little spice to it, little aggression, little property destruction, whatever.
Absolutely. I'm visualizing it.
It's a melting pot of emotion,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So that's what we call an emotional outburst, because typically the combination of all those behaviors lasts for a very long duration. It could be a few minutes or it could be a lot longer. But what's the difference between that and an actual meltdown? So, an emotional outburst, the distinction for us clinically is that the individual, the function is very clear. It's for escape, it's for access, it's for whatever. And there's almost like a shut off. They are still responding to a cue. They're
Yes.
responding to the adult saying, "We understand you're upset. Take a couple minutes and then we will come back."
And at that time, what normally is happening is it either exacerbates and the property destruction becomes more. So now you've given me attention, you've brought it to my awareness. My nervous system is not regulating at all right now. I am kicking over things, I am screaming, could be punching, could be calling you some of the nicest words you've ever heard.
Right.
But Manny, can they control that?
So that's when you start to say that's a meltdown. So when the child or adult is not responsive, is not in control, not self regulating, not in self control, not even adhering to just cues like, "Hey, calm down," or "Hey, talk to me." That's when I would say that's by definition when you have a meltdown.
So I want to go into that a little bit further because in the meltdown, parents, it's very important to understand that a lot of the times when you're like, "Johnny, calm down. Take a deep breath, Johnny." They can't. They are not. That's when you, and I'm going to step back from the microphone because parents, most of us, whether you have a neurotypical or a neurodivergent child, have gone through the and you're a mom or dad or a caregiver going, "Oh my gosh, what do I do? The kid won't calm down." A lot of times that's a smack on the butt. When I've talked to parents, they're like, "Oh, I slap him on the ass and he just stops." I'm like, "Okay, I understand that." But for someone who may not be able to control their physical level of aggression, that is a no-go zone.
Mhm.
I don't believe in the corporal punishment. It's not my thing. I've just seen it extended. I've
You're
been a person who has experienced where that line of, oh, what's the religious thing? Spare the rods, spare the rods,
Spoil the child.
spoil the child. That old homage that
Mhm.
we grew up with, and oh well, if you don't, that's what the derriere's for, and things along those lines. That's teaching the child that we're going to use a physical form of expression to calm down and regulate. No, thank you.
and not just like a negative physical form,
Correct.
and movies exacerbate this too. If you ever watch movies where somebody's kind of in a panic attack or out of control and somebody slaps them in the face, like that's exacerbating the problem.
If we did that to some of our
Could you
children,
imagine?
first of all, we'd have a lawsuit.
For sure.
Second of all, some of our kids punch back.
Mhm.
I mean, I've been in that situation where we've had, and it wasn't the kid in meltdown because they could control it. It was, what is my learned behavior?
Mhm.
And that's what they're emulating. And that's another thing I want to address. That's why I said I know this is going to be a tough subject here. But what's the vibration? What is the child watching in the household?
Hmm.
How are your spouse and you getting along? How do you handle disagreements within the house? Because it's also how the child picks up.
Oh yeah.
And if you have a child that goes into the emotional outburst, but then the next thing you know, emotional outburst turns into a full meltdown
Yep.
because they haven't been taught the skills. And that's one of the things that we want to go into to regulate.
Mhm.
You and I are now teaching and preaching and letting people know that time management really isn't what we should be focused on. Self-regulation is.
Self-regulation. Yep.
And that's where it comes right back down into this topic is understanding, number one, as the caregiver and loved one watching, give yourself some grace because it's hard to watch anyone go through a meltdown, let alone your child, let alone your spouse or your loved one. I was one of those people, growing up in a single family home, mixed, same thing, split parents. and I'm trying to word this for our viewers that can relate to it, that I'm trying to think how us Gen Xers talk about it, because we processed emotion a lot differently.
Oh yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
it was a generation of, if you cry, I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Mhm. It was taught differently.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, the things that we are teaching today were never even put into the programming for our parents.
No.
You know, so you can see the years of the changing and the programming and what we're dealing with now, because it all stimulates from what our parents were taught.
Well, and I also think about my own kids and our kids in this generation, like they are overly stimulated.
Oh,
You know, the video games, the
immediate.
TV, the media. So, you know, so from 4-year-old toddlers all the way to high schoolers, just what they have access to, what they are involved in on a day-to-day basis, they are overly stimulated.
Well, the science backs that. I mean, even from the video concept, I mean, we hear it now in the education sector, where people are now going to, let's remove the computers from the school, because we're in a generation now that their scores are lower than their
Mhm.
predecessors. Like
Mhm.
my generation scores are outdoing the scores of today and outdoing the scores of the millennials. So guys, something has got to,
Something's gotta
we got to
give.
snap it here. And so if we make the change and we teach our kids, our goal is that we can, we think about it. We were talking about spare the rod, but generational curses.
Yep.
And it's not really a curse, guys. When people talk about that term, they're talking about the baggage, the programming that we're bringing from one generation to the next. So where I was going with this, how many of you all can relate? Have you ever had to break something in order to calm down?
Mhm.
I think about the movies we watched growing up, the 80s movies. Oh, how many plates were broken?
Mhm.
How
Or
many glasses were broken?
punching
You
walls or
know,
punching pillows or whatever. Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
It was a release of regulation. People don't realize it. When you start talking about our, Manny and I deal a lot of times, there's a lot of mental health issues going on
Oh
out
yeah.
there. And especially with our teenagers and our high schoolers, cutting.
Yeah.
Why do you think that our teenagers cut? Because then they can feel. And a lot of times it's because they've numbed everything out in order to be accepted, in order to not go into the meltdown, in order to, again, we go back to suffering in silence.
Mhm.
These are all things because we have not taught our kids self-regulation.
Yeah, there was a couple of points too from an ABA perspective I thought would be worth bringing up before we get into like the strategies of how to deal with meltdowns or help meltdowns, I should say better. But there were 2 points that I wrote down. One was the side effect of handling a meltdown with, say, aggressive force or the spank or whatever.
Oh,
And it's actually, you're going to inadvertently, I don't think parents mean to do this,
no.
but essentially what you're going to end up seeing is a lot of escape avoidance maintained behavior. So what does that mean? In plain simple terms, I have a meltdown, I got spanked or slapped in the face or whatever. Well, guess what? The next time I have a meltdown, I'm going to suffer in silence. I'm going to be passive about it. I'm not going to express it the same way because I do not want to get that spank or that slap.
That's
Right.
exactly
And
it.
so now we got a huge problem
From
because
learned behavior.
it's now learned behavior from those consequences. It wasn't that the parent intentionally wanted that, right? But that is a side effect of using those kind of like blunt force situations. The second one is kind of a newer development in ABA called trauma-informed ABA. So all it means is that if a pattern of history, of trauma, is in the presence of that child's life, ABA takes a totally different path, takes a totally different approach. So this is about the last 10, 15 years of research where if a child has a history of trauma, and a lot of it does manifest from meltdowns and how meltdowns were handled. This is the tie-in for me. Trauma-informed ABA says, okay, you can't do ABA the same way. And I would turn it to, as a parent, you can't parent the same way either. So if you have a child that has this history of meltdowns, history of trauma, then you got to approach it a lot differently.
Absolutely. When you're saying this in my head, I'm going, parents, the next part to remember. So we're telling you not to get the physical altercations going in there, but you're telling them how it's going to happen next time, because there will be a next time.
Right.
You need to find the grace in the moment. when a child is in meltdown, it is also not a learning opportunity. No matter what they did to get them into this consequence, because that's a lot of the triggers from meltdowns are there was something put on the child and they're escaping doing what the task was assigned.
Mhm.
And this is their avoidance technique. And it's again, learned behavior.
Yep.
But what happens is they get into the emotional outburst first. And that's what you need to watch.
Mhm.
Where are the signs? So when Manny was telling you all about these emotional outbursts, it's because that's your red flag.
Right.
When those red flags are going in, the child is still able to pull themselves out of the situation. But once it's escalated, now we're in a meltdown. At that point in time, anything that they have done wrong up to that point, you need to put it on pause.
Mhm.
This is not the time to yell at your child. It's not the time for you to be like, see what I told you? You should have cleaned your room, or see what happens when you lie to mom and dad, or
Mhm.
why didn't you do your homework? And no, because they're not hearing you. All they're hearing is I'm got more pressure coming at me, more pressure. And so guess what's going to happen? Woo, you're going to take and you're adding into the trauma response. You're
Right.
adding into the meltdown because all they're hearing is wonk, wonk, wonk. Go to Charlie Brown.
Charlie
Wonk,
Brown
wonk, wonk,
moms, yeah.
wonk, Charlie Brown. Because all they're hearing is you yelling, Johnny, not anything. Everything else is blah, 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 blah. Johnny, blah, 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 blah. So what do you think they're feeling? They're feeling your energy.
Right.
Because they're not listening to you. But what they are feeling, and this is why I started this, guys, is, am I handling this correctly? Is anybody looking at me? Oh my gosh, is the public looking at me? This is my kid. And the reason I want to, again, address that we all go through it. Manny's gone through it. I've gone through it. Our producer's gone through it. Anyone who has children are always good parents. Second guess.
Oh, yeah.
If you're second guessing yourself, then you're looking out for your child. But even in our environment, where this is a safe haven for neurodivergent families, we still see it
Oh, yeah.
when the parents come in to pick up the kid because they have had a meltdown and they're embarrassed. I'm like, this is the last place, but it shows the social behavior and patterns that even as adults, that we're still allowing these subconscious back patterns to run.
Yeah.
Like, you're not thinking about it in the moment. What you should be thinking about is, what can I do to help Johnny?
Yep.
Not, oh my gosh, is somebody going to think I'm a bad mom because Johnny's screaming on the floor? Oh, what the hell with them? Tell these nosy people that have no better lives but then to dramatize any of the thing that you're going on in your life to pew pew.
I like that.
But this is the society, it's kind of a snowball effect. We're in the world of social media. Who's taking a picture of this? Who is watching this? Who's documenting this? And we get so wrapped up in this that then here's the kid. I can remember a client. It was when I first started, so it was about 10 years ago. The ball at Target. You know how the
Red
Target
ball.
stores, how I'll
Mhm.
have the big red ball.
Mhm.
So her son was infatuated. Like, and he did not care. He saw break the target, reference to a video game. Oh, so every time that the mom drove into the Target parking lot, he would get so riled up because to him, this was a video game live action video game. And when he'd get out of the car, elope straight to that red ball. We knew that was going to happen. He'd climb up onto the red ball. Guess what mom was doing? She got that wonderful cell phone out and she's videotaping it. And then she's posting it. Well, guys, just like this podcast, I'm going to say what other people fear to say. I would sit down with the mom and be like, so why were you not engaging with him? Put the phone up.
Right.
Who cares? Don't care about the neighbors. Don't care about the Joneses. You care about your son that's having the crisis right there.
Right.
And here comes the next one. My next comment was, so why don't you take him to that other massive store that's, here in Brevard County, normally across the street.
Across the street, right.
And this is where the comment, oh, we don't go there.
Mhm.
Okay, well then find someone to watch your kid because you understand that that big ball is a trigger. You understand that when he comes in, he just sees the red and white target. So until he is in a place that he can self-regulate, know what you're going to be doing. Or how about preparing him before you get in there?
Sure.
or coming up with a different. We have so many strategies that the parents could do, but my point in the reference is that it wasn't engaged with the kid. She was more worried about what she could post on the social media site or what everyone else was thinking about the situation.
Right. Which is just
But it's
heartbreaking.
common though, Manny.
It's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking because how many times have you been to an airport and you see the child in crisis? How many times you've been in the grocery store and you see the parent allowing the kid to have the meltdown? And I'm going to tell you, before my training, I'm like, oh, what's that parent doing? Somebody needs to go in there and intervene. What are you doing? You follow what I'm saying? Even
Yeah.
myself as an educator, I've caught myself. So we've all been in these patterns where we don't want to be judgmental.
Well, and I think this is where I would say, as a behavior analyst, this is where ABA doesn't help. All right. So that's pretty bold what I just said. So let me clarify. So
You heard just all the BCBAs
Yeah,
go,
right. Oh, so ABA teaches us a lot. ABA teaches parents a lot, right? And we've gone a long way from when we started years ago. But we almost simplified too much the function of behavior. Is it attention seeking? Is it access? Is it sensory? Blah, 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 blah. But when it comes to an actual meltdown, there's got to be a differentiation to teach the parents. All that shit goes out the door.
yes,
Forget the function, because in that moment, at that, whatever the situation is that triggered the meltdown, the function's irrelevant, because the child, the escape, maintain approaches, everything you can think of, the prompting, the shaping, the reinforcement, the redirecting, a lot of it goes out the window. And
safety and well-being.
right, it's just safety and well-being. Just one of the most so this is where I think ABA is helping, going in the right direction, but it's taken us a long time to get there. And it's ironic because it's so simple in concept. It's called compassionate care. So compassionate care is about putting compassion first, to saying, oh, that kid's in crisis, or that kid's in a meltdown, or is struggling in silence, and showing compassion first before you can actually deal with whatever the function of the behavior is. But going compassion first is very pseudoscience, I guess you could say. It's not very analytical from the
That's
ABA,
when you need the
traditional ABA.
depletion to renewal
Well,
grid.
and that's where our heart math, that's where our heart math comes in. But it is this kind of combination of psychology, neuroscience, and ABA that ABA is starting to adopt and
Wonderful.
adapt, But from an ABA standpoint, teaching parents, we don't go there very often. So I love where we're going, because I think when we talk about things like a meltdown, and anybody who's ever had a panic attack can understand this, is that in a meltdown scenario, and you said it beautifully earlier, learning stops, processing stops. You can't comprehend a cue, a prompt, anything.
Well, scientifically, to tell, for our BCBAs out there that went, we're looking at the science. The science is that the sorting center of our wonderful brain is not working
Nope.
when we're in crisis. At that point, the frontal lobe is shut down. Okay. You've got cortisol release. You've got the parasympathetic system that's going, what? The sympathetic system
Right.
is now taking over, and we are running from the dinosaur.
Yep.
Okay. That's what's happening when you see the child that's in meltdown right now. Their entire body is not being regulated on any level.
Right.
And because they've never been taught that, it's scary. So now I'm going to go with my first tip.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So parents.
That was a good segue.
So you've got your kid on the floor. You might have even an older kid that's just yelling at you, because remember it, as they get older, the meltdowns change, but they're still there. And I want to also bring it that if you had a child at 2, 3, or 4, and you think they grew out of it, just remember 2, 3, and 4 when the teens come back in. It just looks differently. The meltdown may still be there if they don't have the self-regulation tools, but it may come across differently. Example, Johnny is 6 years old and he's on the floor screaming and kicking, and I'm not cleaning my room. I'm not going to the store. I'm not going to church. I'm not going whatever. He is just not having it. And it started out as, I don't want to do that, and then kicked over the table. And then parents, normally based on the response of a kid kicking over a table, your response might have escalated that environment a little bit. What are you doing? Are you kicking over the table? Yelling happens when a kid's yelling. Why? It's not that you mean to, but you match the tone
Mhm.
because we want to be heard just
Right.
as much.
Mhm.
Tip number 1, that's the time to go quiet. I can tell you, as someone who, my Lord, in my teenage years and young adult years, I wish I had this science because I was that. Okay, I've gotten to the panic attack point and I'd literally have to break something and then it would, and I'd cry because I couldn't, because the emotional release, everything. So that's, I think, why I have such a heart for our kids. All right, guys, though, when all that's going on and the yelling and screaming, the teenager is the one yelling at you, telling you F this and you're the nicest person in the world and they couldn't live their life without you. The kid is just screaming on the floor, but both of them are in an unregulatory system. They are completely out of it. I am out of it. I'm yelling, I'm screaming, or I'm not, and I'm completely shut down and in a zone, because we've also seen that where kids just go inside so much. That's a big red flag. We can talk about that on another episode, but it's 2 different ways. You have to watch how that kid is expressing themselves. So if I come in and I'm putting gasoline on the fire because
Mhm.
I'm yelling now they're not hearing anything you're saying. They are just feeling that energy. So guess what that's done? Just like the gasoline, you've amplified the meltdown. What you need to do, and I'm telling you this because it takes practice. Your entire life, you have learned to stand up for yourself. You have your defense mechanisms that you've put into place based on your own learned behavior. But when you have a child or a loved one and you become aware that they're in a meltdown, because awareness is the key, guys. If we're not aware of the situation, it's just the emotional outburst. If I'm aware, oh my gosh, emotional outburst, you know what's coming next. Okay, we're aware of it. What do? Do you think I'm going to yell and scream? No, that's the time to go quiet. My son laughs at me because sometimes he prefers the yelling and the screaming. He goes, Mom, when you put your hand on your heart, I know, oh shit, watch out. She's going to tell me to come up with my own punishment.
He's learned.
But he has
He
learned.
has learned.
I've shifted my own baseline. Same thing that what you have to do as parents. These new tools and techniques, if you give them the opportunity, they will make a shift and a very big impact very quickly. So when the kid is in the meltdown, you see it, you acknowledge it, take a deep breath. Let them know, Johnny, I'm here. That's it. Johnny, I love you. And he could be screaming. And see, you don't know that he's not hearing you, but the love and the compassion that you start to generate, he will feel. We have scientific data that already proves that our electromagnetic field goes out up to 6 feet. And that's just because we don't have scientific measurements that can show that it can go further. But if I'm in proximity, and we say 3 feet, if we think about elopers or anything along that line, if I'm in an arm's reach distance, then you can feel my energy. So if you're seeing your child or your loved one or your spouse, it's in this moment, just let them know you're there for them.
Mm-hmm.
And see how quickly we can just shift energy real quick and just be like, I'm here. I love you. It hurts, Mommy, to see you this way. I love you. I'm here for you. That's the shift. Number 1, it causes your amygdala in your brain to go, up. We're not repeating the same pattern. We're going to take a break here. It gives the child time to de-escalate with you being there, just to be there. So many times when we get into relationship talk, we overtalk things, and our partners don't realize that we just want someone to listen to us.
Yep.
We don't need your feedback. We don't need you to fix it. Just listen.
Yep.
Same thing with our kids. When they're in that meltdown stage, take a moment for you to pause and go, okay, he doesn't know what he's doing. She doesn't know what they're doing. I just need to tell him how much that even in this crisis right now, I love you. I'm here for you. You're not alone. It's going to be okay. That may be 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, but you reaffirming that over and over again, it's not just for the child, it's for you too.
Mm-hmm.
Because see, you're shifting your energy so that you can be in a place so that you can respond to the child and not react. So that's my tip number one.
I like that.
What you think, Manny?
All right. Well, I will throw my tip, which I will say my kids taught me more than anything. Um, so most adults and most parents want to have a conversation with their kid. The word conversation starts with the letter C. Well, coincidentally, the word calm also starts with the letter C. Well, what's the one thing we're not in? What state are we not in when we're in a meltdown or handling a meltdown?
We're not
We're
calm.
not typically calm. We're hyper focused. We're alert. We are hypersensitive. Some of us get angry when we see our kid or our fellow spouse or whatever in a meltdown. So the key is not to do that. The key is to get calm. And one of the tips I would offer is really the only way I know how to get calm. And it's taken me a very long time to get there. But it's to model the behavior of what does calm look like. So we focus on heart focused breathing as
Yes.
part of our heart math work. So, but if you're not familiar with that, it's exactly what it sounds like. You are focusing your breathing and you're calming your heart. So that calms your brain, which
Yes.
calms your behavior. It all self-regulates. So if you have a kid, nonverbal, verbal, 4 years old, 18 years old, whatever, but they're in a meltdown, the worst thing you could do is hyperreact. So model the behavior that would help them out. So get calm. So what does that look like? For me, it looks like a lot of deep breathing. So I'll just share kind of a personal anecdote. And so my 4-year-old, my twins, couldn't be any more different. But coincidentally, when it comes to tantrums and meltdowns, they're pretty much the same. They just do it on alternate days. So when it's not Viviana, it's Junior. When Manny Jr. is in a meltdown, it's just it's a city. It's a meltdown extravaganza. But one of the things my wife and I are doing, and we practice it. It's not easy by any stretch because if you're up there, it's hard. You got to force it. You got to say, okay, my kid's in a meltdown. He can't respond to me. He's not listening. All right. So I'm going to get quiet. I love that tip. And then what's next tip? Start modeling behavior that will help them out. So we start breathing. We don't talk to the kid. We don't talk to Junior. We just let him do his thing. We make sure he's safe. He's not doing anything extravagant. But we start breathing. And it's taken a couple of months, but now Junior starts to breathe. So he sees mom and dad doing it, and Junior goes like that. Forgive me the mic, right?
Okay, so we're going to pause.
Yeah.
Can you tell the audience how old Junior is?
So Junior's 4. He's 4. He's going to be 5 months from now, September.
Look
And
at
we're
teaching
filming this-
self-regulation.
Yeah. So, and at first Junior didn't want to play. We would say, "Hey, Junior, take a breath," which is probably the single most secondary tip of this one. Don't tell somebody to take a breath.
Well,
they
can we
don't
take a
listen.
pause right
Yeah.
there? Too? Also, don't tell them, get calm.
Get calm. Take a breath.
Yeah, if I
Breathe.
could, I would.
You're right.
It's the worst thing you can do when someone's in crisis. Be like, settle down. Because that was what we used in our house.
And-
Settle down.
and
Settle
it's-
down, Pam.
right.
Settle down, Nikki. Settle down, Stephanie. And be like,
Calm your
right. I got settled down for you. But that's what it is. You
It
can't do
is.
that. Because again,
It's the brain. It's not
the
processing.
cortex is not processing correctly. Okay. So when you tell someone to settle down when they're in the meltdown, you just gave them another shot of what were those drinks back in the day? 5-hour energies? Is that
Yeah,
it? Be like,
right.
yep, here you go. Here's an energy drink for you. Keep
But-
going.
But there is something to be said about a model, because
Yes.
a model is a visual cue, and it's a visual cue that once you can focus on it, you can't ignore it. Why is mom and dad not talking to me? Why are they not yelling at me? What are they doing? And I think that's kind of what I saw Junior kind of manifest into after a couple of months of this. And he would, I get it. Okay. And he would start doing it. Then once you get through that point where they're deep breathing and they're not hyper whatever, then it's like, okay, you okay? What happened? And then you can have a conversation. We see this with a particular kid in our school who's going to be 12. And you would not know it, but like 4 years ago, when he was in our elementary school, his meltdowns would go for a very long time, 30 minutes, 45 minutes was not
And
unheard of.
intense.
And he was definitely not listening to any cues, any verbal cues. But we've changed that in a pretty miraculous way where it doesn't have zero meltdowns, but his meltdowns now are lasting anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes.
Yep.
And not very property destruction or anything like that. Just screaming, a little bit of yelling, maybe a little aggression for a minute.
So while we're talking about this, it pulls us back to why did we start doing the heart math?
Right.
And this is why.
Full circle,
Hearing why Junior has started to replicate it. All I kept thinking was, while you're saying that, I'm going, oh, there's learned behavior. Here is a primary positive example of learned behavior. And the reason I want to bring this up is that it took effort. That's what Manny just stated. It took effort of him and his wife to initiate and to not go into what their normal baseline pattern will be, which is to yell back at them, stay elevated with them, meet them at their level, when what we really need to do is meet them at where we want them to be.
Right.
You know, I found so much power in that because learned behavior can also be in the positive. It's not just the negative, but we first got to teach regulation skills. And that's, again, coming back, the heart math. Why did we do it? Because we started to see it. Just like when we started teaching the breath work at the elementary school, we have kindergartners that are self-advocating to their friends when one starts to get into the emotional outbreak. And again, I want to go back that if we can stop it at the emotional outbreak, then you can have those awareness conversations, because it's like, okay, Pam, I see your face is getting red and you're not breathing. So let's stop right here. Everything is okay. Let's breathe together. And then we'll come up with a solution.
Right.
See, I haven't been stop that. No, yes. Yeah. What's the problem? Why'd you? No, we're going to come up with a solution. But see how my tone even changed, because I saw the precursor: red in the face, fists are gripped, words are coming, the breathing is quickening. And when you can start to notice these things, then you can be aware of where your child is, where your loved one is. And then you can understand, where does your energy need to be in order for you to have a successful conversation. And sometimes, parents, it can be, we're going to sidebar this, because maybe you do not have the capacity to handle the issue that led to the meltdown. Maybe it was a bigger issue at hand. Maybe it was cheating on a test, and now you've got a 16-year-old and they've been busted, and their normal is to escape and to run. Well, guess what? They can't escape and run, and they don't know how to control their emotions, their regulation. They don't know yet. Well, this is where the teenager meltdowns come. And so, trust me, as a parent with a young adult in the house, and as we've given coaching, clinical sessions, parent training over and over so many times, the kid has demolished the whole room. It has been flipped upside down. We just had this conversation. Dad's military, and come home, told the kid, no, we're not going to deal with this. And he's a lot more firmer than what mom is. So the kid knew, oh, I'm not going to get away with this with dad. So what is it? Oppositional defiance. Oh, yeah, well, watch what I can control. You know, we know what the function is because we know the child. But in the crisis, in the moment, as the parent is watching this kid destroy their home room, I'll be the first one to tell you, moms and dads, you're not going to want to go, let me just breathe while he destroys his home bedroom. No, you're not going to want to, but that's when you need to. Okay, so let me again rewind that. You're not going to want to, but that's the most important time that you need to go, okay. So while you're still having the emotional outburst and you start flipping over your desk in your chair, not in an aggressive, well, Manny, you flip over your table, you're going to clean it up. But see how I can be calm. Be like, do you really want to throw that? You know, when they've got the table in their hands. Do you really want to do that? Because you're going to have to clean it up. Oh, yeah?
Yeah. You're just taunting them.
Okay.
You're just taunting them.
All right. So sorry. So sad you did that, because see, now we're showing empathy. That's so, but I'm not aggressive with you. Now, parents, if you have the tendency to want to meet them at their level, this is a good coping skill for you. So this is Pam's tip number 2. Tip number 2 is to come up with a catchphrase. We teach this in Love and Logic, is that you're going to teach empathy. But the only way to teach empathy is to understand that what they're doing is their behavior. You have no, I'm not making Manny flip the table and chair. So you have to come up with something, and it will become very good for you as a safeguard word for you, because when you want to be triggered, when you want to be like, I'm going to ground you and take your electronics and what are you doing? And what, then it's just like, oh, what a bummer, man. You screaming, calling me everything but a white woman. I'm saying that because I have been called every word that you all, I'm a ginger. Okay. And when teenagers are mad, you hear it all. And I look at them and I'm like, so sad. What a bummer. What a shame. Why you keep saying that, Miss Pam? Well, because there have to be, you're going to have to clean all this mess up. You see, now we're having a conversation. I've already taken one step from that emotional outburst, so we're not in a meltdown, because now you're communicating with me.
And
you're not yelling at me.
You're
now.
out of the meltdown now because they're responding. Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So as much as, and it can be, and look, guys, if you got to say it sarcastically at first because you want to go in there full raging as someone who understands that, it's okay to be like, oh, Manny, what a bummer. Because you know the consequences that are going to come. Once you calm down, you still going to have to clean this up.
Yeah.
What a bummer. And they're calling you everything that you can imagine. What a bummer. That's the point, because at that, you need to be able to control you. Right. And the reason I'm telling you this, parents, is because it needs to be a tool for you. Because before we can tell you, go in there and breathe, you have to be regulated. Yeah. And so I'm giving you a tip so that you don't come in there using the words that you really would like to, as if they were a grown adult that just flipped over a room. How about breaking a TV in the moment? You know, property destruction is a big thing in our neurodivergent community because they can't control and regulate. So what do they want to do? All that controller for the Wii, the Xbox, all of these systems goes right. How many times have we heard it from parents? He broke a $2,000 TV. That dad who can't watch the NBA finals because Johnny just threw his controller is not going to want to go, breathe, Johnny. Right. It's not going to happen. No. So when I tell you to come up with a catchphrase, I'm giving you a tip to regulate you so that you can be the best parent, loved one, caregiver in that moment. This even can work with your spouse. They're going to catch on to you a lot faster than the kid, though. Right. When I look at the spouse and go, what a bummer. Oh, really? It is a bummer. Yeah, it is. It's a bummer. But now look, now we're not in that passive aggressive. We're not in an aggressive, now it's actually, yeah, I know. Okay, so how do we get past this?
And something you're highlighting, I think is also important to tell the parents too, is like, so let's say Johnny or Jane did something wrong and then a meltdown happened. That doesn't mean the consequence for their action goes away. It just means it's delayed.
Yes.
It's just a little delayed.
Yes.
So once the meltdown's over and Johnny and Jane are now responding to your discussion, it's as simple as, so you remember what happened before the meltdown? Right. So you're still grounded, or you're still going to have to clean it up, or you're still going to have to go to timeout if they're a younger kid.
And be ready, parents, because it may trigger another meltdown.
It may go back.
Because remember, what is the function of the behavior? And so in their minds, that was avoidance. And they avoided the punishment because they had a meltdown. Do you see how quickly you're going to become aware as a parent? Because now, if they go immediately into the meltdown, you got the tools, right? Because you're like, this is not working, bud, but I'm not feeding into it.
Right, exactly.
And that's you controlling your energy. One of the things we tell our teachers especially is that learning to control your energy, where you're being depleted, where you're being renewed, not only is it going to help in the crisis at the moment, but if you have a teacher that's dealing with 20 neurodivergent kids all day long and they can still go home with lots of energy, I'm telling you guys, these tools work.
Yep.
But just like my pastor used to say, the word works for those that work the word. You got to practice, practice, practice.
For sure.
And laugh at yourself, guys. I can tell you that I was the most sarcastic person when I started learning love and logic at first. I was like, oh, bummer. What a bummer. Yeah. Bummer. You're still going to have to do it.
Mine was, I know, but what did I say? Instead of saying, I know, but what did I say?
Yeah.
Very different.
Yes.
When I first started, I was like, but what did I say?
But do you realize that look what it did? See, you're still laughing because
Well,
that's what it
cracks me
was.
up
It
after
was
the fact, yeah.
it gave us a moment to pause within ourselves. So every
Yeah.
time I would be like, oh, bummer, it was because I was breaking the pattern of behavior that I was raised with, which was to blow up, lose my patience, lose and deplete all my energy. And then I want to know why I couldn't handle any more crisis. Well, my capacity was done because I'd already given everything to one moment. Well, there's 25 more hours, or hold on, what day, how many hours in the day? 24. So there's 22 more hours at least. What are you going to do if you're already spent? What if this meltdown happened at 7 o'clock in the morning? You're going to go to work with it. That's how people are doing it now. It's why we're on medications for anxiety and depression. It's because we don't know how to self-regulate. And the doctors nowadays just want to give us a pill instead of teaching us that, hey, in 90 seconds,
Yeah.
just a little bit of practice 2 or 3 times a day can get you right there.
I think that goes back and ties really beautifully to what you said at the beginning is you're not alone, right? And I think for a lot of parents, including myself, there are times where you're dealing with a meltdown and you feel alone.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to ask for help, or you don't know who to ask for help. But I think that's probably the most critical part is that if you do need help, if you can't handle the meltdown, if you can't self-regulate to help them self-regulate, that's when you are needing help the most.
Oh, so well said. So as we wrap up this episode, what I would like, Manny, I think that was your greatest closing words. If you want to say something else, go right ahead. I just think that we want to instill with our parents, what is the best tool? Your calmness.
Yeah.
Your ability to maintain your energy and frequency in the meltdown, even before the meltdown, when you can acknowledge, okay, we're in an emotional outburst right now, whether it is verbal, physical, even when they go inside, you can look at your child and you can tell. So when you see these things starting to come to the surface, take that moment to pause. Be like, okay, I see what's about to happen. I know where we're going to go, and I'm going to take control of this right now by taking the moment to breathe. Okay. All right. I have tools. I have resources. And like Manny said, you're not alone. So guys, come back next month. We're going to be teaching some of these regulation tools and tips. Each month, we're going to add to your toolbox and your resources. If you happen to have a moment that comes in, send us an email, info@pamelafur.com. We'll be sure to answer it. We'll be direct with you and your specific situation. Because guys, from our couch to yours, we are just here to help. Been through it. We've seen it. We want to make sure no parents feel alone.
For sure.
All right, guys. We'll see you next month.